her reflection lies. A window to the soul where truth never dies. In her eyes, a depth untold. Stories of magic, new and old. She gazes deep, sees beyond the veil, where secrets reside and myths prevail. In her reflection, her essence clear. A witch's journey, far and near. I'm not good at the dramatic voices, as you could tell, but for today's video, we're going to be talking about mirrors, their folklore and superstition, and their place in witchcraft. That was definitely not a very flattering angle of me, but hi, if you're new here, my name is Crystal the Cottage Witch. I've been practicing witchcraft and studying the occult for about 27 years in total. And on this channel, sometimes we do spells, sometimes we do folklore, sometimes we do history, sometimes we do rants, sometimes we do vlogs, sometimes we do spell tips, tricks, ideas, so on and so forth. It's a plethora of things here. So if you're new here, welcome. And if you've been here for a while, welcome back. I normally do unhinged intros. This was like a normal intro. I'm so proud of myself, even though I was so awkward trying to like memorize the poem. But anyway, today's video on mirrors is a scripted one. Sometimes I go off of my knowledge off the top of my head and I'll just be like, this makes great video. Other times I try to write it out so it's a more structured format. So I do rant sometimes, as if you guys have been here for a while, you do know. And then it gets a little unhinged sometimes. But anyway, since today is a scripted video, I figured I'd sit nice and comfy and cozy on my couch. Granted, this is still Halloween time when I'm filming this. It is not Halloween or Samhain yet, but when this goes out, it'll probably be after Samhain and Halloween. So there is still Halloween decor up, but you know, Halloween's all year round me, and I'm sure for a lot of you. So as I'm going through everything, again, I write down everything that I want to say, and I write it down verbatim, like how I would talk. So you might see me looking like this off screen. It's just because I'm going over my notes and everything that I wanted to say to make sure that I am on track and I give you guys as much information as possible from as many different perspectives as I can. That way you're not just getting magic just from my personal perspective. I do just share what I experience and my experience in certain things, but I will give you the generalized idea of the different folklore and superstitions throughout the years and the ages to take us to where mirrors are used in witchcraft now. And also like the paranormal, because I'm also a paranormal investigator, so obviously I have to throw in those beliefs. But let's move on over to my Halloween living room, get a little cozy. I'm going to grab a drink. You grab a drink. Feel free to grab a notebook, take some notes if you want, or just have me on in the background as you're cleaning or doing laundry, even though I don't have a voice or a face for radio. So let's do a quick scene change to my very Halloween and Samhain themed living room. All right, so I angled this so you won't have to see all my Halloween decor because it might make you miss Halloween, because I know when this is over, I'm going to miss Halloween. But anyway, let's get into it. Now, mirrors have had a long history. I'm sure most of you guys are automatically going to picture like that John Dee style scrying mirror, or like this fancy looking mirror from like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Not only is the mirror's history long and superstitious, but a lot of it would be, dare I say, magical. You know, get it? Because, you know, magic mirror. Magic mirror. Sorry, I'm exhausted if you can't tell. My energy is kind of like down here instead of up here. But anyway, before we jump into like the superstitions, witchcraft, and the supernatural, let's really understand the mirror first. So for those of you that pictured like the obsidian scrying mirror, like the volcanic glass, black scrying mirror, you're actually envisioning the real first mirror, besides, you know, reflections of things in water. Those were like the first handmade ones. The Aztecs made the first mirrors out of obsidian. But I bet you a chunk of you guys already knew that, especially if you're into Enochian magic. And if you did know that, hell yeah, I'm super proud of you. Now let's see if you know this part. Though it might be easy to guess. Which one of their gods were associated with the mirror? Since I'm going to butcher these names, I'm going to pop them up on screen now. 3, 2, 1. All right, time's up. Now let me show you the answer. I threw in a bunch of different Aztec gods and goddesses that were like similar in superstition and folklore with the mirror. But yes, Tezcatlipoca was the answer. I have like a separate thing for the abbreviation on the other screen so I wouldn't butcher it as much. His name translates to smoking mirror. And he had obsidian on his headpiece. Other depictions of him had it on his back or on his foot, but either way, he always had a chunk of obsidian mirror on him. And he had that because his followers can only communicate with him through the mirror. So the god of sorcery was tied to the first mirror. And that's also the main mirror used in scrying today. And that was like 6000 BC, so that is saying something. Aztecs weren't the only ones to have mirrors tied to gods and goddesses. And again, I'm sure you're aware of that. Like in ancient ancient Egypt, their mirrors were polished metals like bronze, copper, silver, even gold. Not only did they use them to light their pyramids, and light up other spaces, I'm sure you've seen documentaries on this, but their mirrors had symbol as well. It stood for renewal and rebirth. They made their mirrors look like the rising sun for a reason. It was tied to Ra, their sun god, and Hathor, the goddess of love, fertility, etc. There's been some other people who loop her in with Isis, Ishtar, and Mut, but that's a story for another day. And we also have the Chinese magic mirrors, and they also have in their mythology the story of the Mirror Kingdom. Now, I love the story of the Mirror Kingdom. The quick sum up version of it is that there is this secret kingdom filled with all these creatures that are bound by magic to sleep. However, one day they'll wake up to fight this world and regain their place back here. Pretty ominous, right? But whenever you pass by a mirror and see movement out of the corner of your eye, that is believed to be the first stirrings of this world, this magic world, as it's slowly waking up. And with that magic spell that bounds the creatures to this mirror kingdom, it's also used to bound the mirror people to that land. They're cursed to now mimic every move of their human-like counterpart whenever they look into a reflective surface. I'm pretty sure Goosebumps' Let's Get Invisible had an episode that was based off of this, as a lot of other things, but that's where I first came to find out what it was through Goosebumps. Now, like I said, they also had the Chinese ancient magic mirror, which they're beautiful. Some were jade, some were bronze, but either way, the front part was reflective, and that part was used as a mirror. However, the back of them had these intricate designs on them, so whenever any light hit them, it looks like the mirror is transparent, and the design of the back of the mirror is projected onto a wall. How cool is that? If I could find a clip of it that isn't copyright, I'll try to put one in here real quick.
To share them with you this morning. So here's the mirror. All right, you can see the one side of it there has some writing on it, actually the name of a Buddha, and this is likely how it was displayed before. It's hung up, it's kind of nice to look at and whatnot, but on the other side, it just looks plain, right? There's really nothing there, and that's why no one really thought much more about it. But this is what you get on the wall when you shine a light off that bronze just right. Pretty awesome, yeah? So that is an image of Amitabha Buddha. Eventually, when the display is finished, it'll look a little bit like this. You'll be able to see the mirror and the light and then the image that's produced up on the wall. And again, that display is set to be up a week from Saturday, so that's July 23rd. And guys, it's all such just a wonderful coincidence for us. I was at the museum yesterday preparing a story that'll run on Friday just about how great it is to have an institution like Cincinnati Art Museum in our community. And it just worked out that Jill had this awesome surprise to share and gave us the go-ahead to share with everybody this morning.
Do they know?
16th century-ish, they think.
Golly. It hasn't broken or anything. They just can't.
No. And there's so few of them in the world. There's a few in Shanghai. There's one, I think, in the Tokyo National Museum, one in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, and one at the Cincinnati Art Museum.
How they made it. How did those people that long ago make that to do that?
Where they knew the reflection was going to be that impressive.
I was thinking that too.
It must be when the sun hits it right or whatever,
So cool.
I just wanted to open a secret door.
Right.
When it shines.
Yeah.
Maybe it does. We'll have to see later.
That's right. And I will have that piece on the Art Museum on Friday morning as well. So.
That was really neat.
Good stuff.
Now, let's move over to the potatoes before we get to the meat and gravy. That was a really terrible worded segue. Anyway, we're moving on to where some of the superstitions came from and how mirrors were genuinely believed to be like this magical thing. So first up, we have the ancient Greek tale of Narcissus, who staring at his own face reflected in the water, wasted away to nothing. This was like the first story of a reflection causing harm. You know what I mean? Not that the moral of this video is that you're going to be so enamored by your reflection that turn in some form of daffodil, like Narcissus, but this is the gateway that paves the way for other stories. Besides the Aztec using their obsidian mirrors for communicating with the god of sorcery, we have the Roman myth of Vulcan. Vulcan is the Roman blacksmith god, in which he made a magic mirror that showed the past, present, and future. I put my hand in the same spot. Past, present, future. Woo! I'm so tired. I'm so sorry. There's also the other fact that he made one for his wife, Venus, Aphrodite, but she used it to hide her affairs with Ares or Mars, but whatever. Then there's also Perseus. He He used a mirror to defeat Medusa, the reflection being his saving grace and her downfall. Romans also believed that their gods could see souls through mirrors. It was believed to be one of the ways that the gods watched them. That's why breaking a mirror was so disrespectful. You ever heard if you break a mirror, you get 7 years of bad luck? Well, that's also believed to be from the Romans. Romans believed that mirrors could also trap souls. However, it would take 7 years for that soul to regenerate, not regress, regenerate. And because of that, well, you're cursed for that time. Or, having 7 years bad luck. Since after that, the body would renew itself, the bad luck will eventually end. Unless you take a piece of the broken mirror and hold it to a tombstone to either transfer it or show how sorry you were. Which is funny because in medical science, the average thought on like allergies and renewing the skin cells and things like that is 7 years. Your body changes every 7 years. So that's also interesting to point out. Tying into this belief of trapped souls is why people would also cover their mirrors when someone had passed away, like in the same room as a mirror, to prevent the soul from being trapped in there. Same as if you sleep next to a mirror. People would cover their mirrors, since when you're sleeping, that's when you're most vulnerable and you could be spied on. That is still a very popular belief in feng shui, to not have any mirrors facing your bed. There's also the superstition that babies can't look into mirrors before their first birthday, otherwise that there would develop a stutter. I also can't talk right now, and I can't talk sometimes, so I wonder if that's what happened to me. Could also be that I've been going nonstop doing something every day a week for the past 3 weeks, and I've gotten maybe 2 hours of sleep at the most, so I'm just exhausted and I'm drained. But I'm going to blame it to the fact that I looked into a mirror before I was 1. Anyway, since vampires have no soul, they can't be seen in mirrors, since the mirror reflects the soul. That is where this superstition came into life. The Greeks also used mirrors to catch and reflect the moonlight, so they could use it to see into the future. And then, obviously John Dee, Edward Kelly, and his scrying. Moving on throughout the years to even have scrying be a type of parlor game in which women would scry to try and see their future husband in numerous different ways. When it comes to witchcraft and mirrors, most people automatically just think of scrying. But because of its versatility, it could be used in basically any type of spell. Most times because of its reflective properties. And if you don't have a mirror, you would use aluminum foil. Know what I mean? It's either reflecting on you, amplifying your spell work, or it's reflecting something from you. Since mirrors used to be made out of silver, mirrors still have like that moon symbolism behind them. That mystery, that secret. They definitely have like high priestess energy, if you know what I mean. Also, the silver is also why some of those like vampiric folklore and soul folklore progress. The silver is supposed to be in its purest form. But anyway, mirrors also carry a high regard in the paranormal realm as well. They're used to channel otherworldly entities during sleepovers and the like. I'm sure you've heard of Bloody Mary and Candyman and, variations of this, as well as that 2 mirrors facing each other can create portals, and that you need to spiritually lock your mirrors to make sure that nothing comes after you. I'm sure you've heard of these, right? So let's dissect each of those. Let's tie them all in and break them down a little bit more. We're going to combine Bloody Mary and scrying. But gas! Crystal! Those are 2 different things! One's evoking, and the other one is channeling and divination! They're not the same! Well, let's talk about that. That was supposed to come off as super animated, and I'm normally super animated, but I'm so tired that I felt like that just came off as condescending, and that is not how I meant it. I'm sorry, normally my energy is all like, hello guys, let's do things, and right now I'm like, I am ready for nap. But I am chugging through to make sure that this video comes out. Anyway, Bloody Mary and scrying. Let's talk about it. We're going to talk about more things that I never see discussed in witchcraft. These things are important to know. And the first and the most biggest thing is the Caputo Effect, otherwise known as strange face illusion. Scrying and any type of like mirror gazing games or rituals can actually be somewhat troublesome for some people because of the Caputo Effect. So, what is the Caputo Effect? The Caputo Effect is when you stare at a reflective surface, or even someone's eyes, which can cause your perception to distort and cause mild hallucinations after about like 10 to 15 minutes. I just realized I'm probably squinting so hard in this video and looking so angry because I have a new light and it is so bright. I'm sorry if I look off-putting if I'm talking like this the whole time. I have my contacts in, so there is no filter. It's just reflective light in my face. So I'm sorry if I look mean. I just realized that because I felt my own brow furrow. Sorry, I'm not mean, I promise. But anyway, this will cause mild hallucinations after, 10 to 15 minutes of just nonstop staring at a reflective surface or someone's eyes. Your face will distort in your vision, or you could start to see strange faces around you due to the strain from your eyes from staring at your own reflection and staring at itself. Now, add in some burning herbs, and you could cut those times in half. Some people will also drink like blue lotus tea, and that does have slight hallucinogenic properties in it. And if you didn't know that, while you're staring into a reflective surface and drinking this tea, you're gonna potentially have a pretty bad time without your knowledge if you weren't aware of like drinking this tea can kind of make you trip out a little bit and the own things that your mind can do with itself. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that the brain can trick you to kind of confuse what you're seeing. Now, the reason why this could be troublesome for some people is that if someone has an underlying medical condition or diagnosis or an underlying mental condition or diagnosis, these hallucinations will be way more intense than the average person staring into a mirror. And not only that, these hallucinations for these types of people linger as a types of like Troxlers Fading. You know, that ghost of an image, if you stare into it, like me staring into this ring light for so long, I look away, I close my eyes, I see the circle of light. That's Troxlers Fading. So no matter what they do, like if they close their eyes, the images will still kind of be like burned into their eyes. And for these people, because of these Caputo effects with their underlying conditions, with these hallucinations being more intense and coming on quicker and lasting longer, because of their intensity, it could lead to someone believing that they're now haunted or they're now cursed or they now summon something or they are now possessed. These images have messed up people psychologically, all because they have a imagination, or they have ADHD, or they have a schizoaffective disorder, and they just happen to get an intense image that just kind of sticks in their brain and messes them up. It's no one's fault. It's just something that happens without any warnings given to anyone about it, just in case. There should always be a little disclaimer. I don't know. I think this is where that whole scrying is dangerous, and maybe through the centuries, why it was like dangerous for the average person to try and communicate with spirits. I think this is where that all kind of comes from, and I personally wouldn't blame them. It could potentially be like a bad trip of sorts for like wording that like that for like similarity purposes to a few select people. There's no disclaimers that anyone gives in witchcraft. Like, hey, these herbs have slightly mind-altering side effects. It's very rare that it could happen, but just in case you're one of that select few that are actually sensitive to those side effects, don't burn this herb, but here are some substitutes that still work just as well. Now, I feel like I'm compelled to give you some examples. Wormwood does have some effects if some people are very sensitive to the type of carcinogen that's in it. It could cause like some seizures if handled intensely. Mugwort can give you like a very, very slight high, but that's more related to like a cannabis type high, a very, very slight form of that. A blue lotus tea does have psychedelic properties in a way. So for like divination purposes, I would select maybe goldenrod, because long ago goldenrods were also used as dowsing rods for divination and of its illuminating properties. But if you have seasonal allergies, don't burn that. I would stick to a common incense that you're maybe familiar with, maybe like frankincense, myrrh, sandalwood, cedar, something along those lines. While you're just starting out and you're just starting to know your allergies, just play it safe. Or, hey, don't forget there are natural and psychological reasons as to why certain things can happen. So let's explain those so people are aware, so they can find like their own personal limit. But no, not really. I don't really see that. It's all described as magical and spiritual and in the human lens of good and bad. And it could leave people feeling potentially ostracized if they had a different experience with something that someone else has had, because maybe they are more sensitive to one of these side effects. And if the other person doesn't have the same conditions as like the first person, they'll write it off as the other person needs to cleanse, and maybe cleanse the house and get rid of the scrying mirror or bowl or candle or whatever form of staring scrying that they were doing, because it sounds so sinister, versus being like, hey, let's see if there's a mundane reason for this first, Or if they know about this effect, the Caputo Effect, they could run down a little checklist with their friend to narrow it down, versus having the person being even more terrified and potentially freaking them out even more by now telling their friend that they're cursed or potentially possessed because of what they saw looking in a mirror. This is why I do these videos. There's so much in witchcraft that makes people think that, like, or I should say some people only think that only like the elite can do certain things, or that there's so many secrets and that everything is either good or bad. It's always been like that, and it's not helping anyone. It makes people have this distorted view of witchcraft. Witchcraft to me is this beautiful, wonderful, freeing thing. I feel so absolutely feral when I'm doing my spells, especially like outside or at nighttime. It doesn't matter what phase the moon is in, though I do love the full moon. I'm also just like a night person. Or when there's a really nice thunderstorm and you could hear it and you could feel it come in, the leaves will flip so you see all the backside of the leaves to absorb the water. That's when you know a good storm is coming. Wind just rips through you and just brings the essence of everywhere it's been and swirls it around you, and you could feel it run through your fingers and go through your hair. Doesn't matter how long or short it is. And then if there's thunder, the thunder just rumbles through you and it just makes you feel so alive, and it just makes you want to run to the edge of everything that you can't see and just like stretch energy from like your fingertips. I know that sounds so weird. I sound crazy right now, but like, does anyone else ever feel that way, or is that just me? I don't know. Maybe I just sound crazy. Don't listen to me. Anyway, but to me, in my personal opinion, witchcraft is beautiful. Magic in all forms of its essence is beautiful. And you know what else besides you is beautiful? Telling people the truth and being honest with them. Not everything will have a magical answer. Scrying has been like adapted by many spiritual and non-spiritual people, but mirrors are used for more than scrying. Cataptromancy, I don't think I mentioned that before, but that's like the official name of like what scrying is, but everyone just calls it scrying. So, but if you wanted the official name of divination by looking into a mirror, it's captromancy, but everyone just calls it scrying. I don't think I've heard anyone call it that ever, but a good example of all this would be the Psychomanteum. It's been popularized since like the 1990s or so, but it's basically angling a mirror in a very dim room, and it's angled so like you can't see yourself, so like you can't see your face, and you're sitting in a chair and you're doing this to communicate with spirits. With you knocking out your face, it's believed to negate the effects of the Caputo Effect or strange face illusion. However, Troxlers Fading and like ghost images could also still be a factor here. I'm just putting that out there in case of you want to try this and your mind is just a little bit more active than others. Nothing wrong with you. I just want to put that out there just in case, so you know. All of a sudden you see like a dinosaur coming at you and you're just like, why is no one else seeing a dinosaur? It just means that like you got a mad strong brain. So the Psychomanteum has been likened and it's said to have been of like adapted from the ancient Greek Necromanteion. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Necromanteion. So there is some amazing documentaries that go into like what the Necromanteion is, but if you're not aware, it was like famous Greek temples where, like, I'm giving a huge summed up version right now. There's so much more that goes into it, but for time's sake, this is the summed up version of it. People would enter these temples, they would consume food, drugs, like narcotics and things like that, have a cleansing ceremony. Wow, skipping ahead, because then afterwards they would sassafras a sheep. You know what I mean? I don't know if I can say that on YouTube, but be gone. That was terrible. Oh my, so mean. I didn't know how else to say that. I'm so sorry. Then they would go through all these earthen underground tunnels and like weaving hallways down into the depths. And they would pass through all these iron gates and they would leave offerings at all these iron gates as, you know, everything kind of started to like kick in their system. Sometimes they would ask questions. Sometimes they would do prayers. Sometimes they would chant something on their way down. But when they got to the inner sanctum in this main tunnel thing, all the priests would be lying on the ground and the people would do their prayers, their chants, or ask their questions. And all of a sudden, the priest would fly up and fly through the air on like the very man-made equivalent version of cranes. So all these people consumed all these things, went through like a maze, and then the priests had attached themselves to cranes. and then they just started flying through the air. It was like crazy. There's like a whole entire thing of that, like the Greeks and the Romans would do in like their underground tunnels and temples to like make statues bleed or emit water or oil or make their priests fly. It was crazy to like think about. It's like a very summed up version. Sorry, I thought I just saw something on the corner of my eye. Might have been a bug. That is like the very summed up version of the Necromanteion. But either way, they say that the Psychomanteum is allegedly modeled after that. I'm guessing, and this is just my guess, that because of maybe of the rituals involved, like chanting something over and over again, and also maybe because of the reflection of like the river Styx that would like carry the souls of the dead to Hades, would be similar to a reflection seen in a mirror. But that's just my guess. I'm going to be honest. That is my guess, because that is the only thing that would kind of make sense to me. I am so tired. I'm so sorry. That would be the only thing that would make sense to me, but maybe it's not even that deep and I'm thinking way too deep into it. I don't know. So this happens in the paranormal world too. Like two mirrors facing each other or multiple mirrors all facing each other would create a portal. I'm sure you heard this before, but where did this idea come from? And most importantly, is it true? So let's think back to where we briefly touched upon the summed up history of mirrors and what we learned from like the beginning of this video. I know I have no energy, so I might sound very monotone, so you might not remember if you even made it this far. But from their creation, basically, mirrors had this otherworldly aura. They're seen as like that type of like liminal space, acting like windows into other realms. They weren't called looking glasses for nothing, you know. There are a lot of beliefs that mirrors will amplify the energy of the room it's in, be it good or be it bad. Now let's talk about the two mirrors facing each other. When mirrors are believed to be like these liminal space masterpieces, putting these together would be believed to be opening up a portal. You're reflecting its own energy back at it in order to open up its own door. Some will relate this to electrodynamics. So let's insert a fun scientific fact here relating it to electrodynamics. When there is light being directed at a mirror, it reflects as an electromagnetic wave. And with mirrors facing each other, reflecting this light back and forth, it would further amplify this electromagnetic wave. Side note, electrodynamics is like one of the oldest forms of physics, so this is something that they've been looking into for a very long time. But yes, two mirrors facing each other does produce electromagnetic waves. Seriously, if you want to pause right now to look it up and fact check me, you're more than welcome to. So that's already kind of crazy cool. It makes sense when you think about it, but still, you're kind of like, oh, this would make sense as to where this belief kind of came from, plus all the superstition behind everything. In the paranormal, electromagnetic fields are like believed to go hand in hand with paranormal activity. Electromagnetic waves are just the waves of electricity and magnetic energy. Well, I should say electric and magnetic energy going through a space. While like the electromagnetic frequency, I don't know what this was, but this will mean frequency now, is like the type of that wave. So electromagnetic waves is the wave. This is electromagnetic wave. This is the frequency telling us what type of wave that is. Because the wave is a thing that happens. The frequency narrows it down, if that helps. And the electromagnetic field is picking up on a static area of electricity, and magnetic charged particles. Wave is moving. Frequency is what type. Field is like a blob, to put it in like the easiest terms for the sake of this video. Since when we say static, we mean it as mainly stationary, not like Storm from X-Men type of static charge, nothing like that. Anyway, since these two mirrors facing each other have these old spiritual beliefs over many cultures and centuries, plus the added in effect of physics, people tie them to portals. Mirrors facing each other outside of all of this also do create optical illusions. Like an infinity mirror, our brain is trying to process what we're fully looking looking at, and it'll create more tricks on the mind. Again, not to mention adding back in that electromagnetic energy happening as well, which will also affect a person's psyche, inducing like those feelings of like fear, paranoia, and anxiety. Could this be true? Will facing mirrors up against each other actually create a portal? I will say that if mirrors facing each other will automatically make a portal no matter what and no matter what the circumstances, like how people will try and tell you, I feel like hair salons would be the most haunted place on earth. And how many haunted hair salons have you heard of versus like all these other places? I personally feel to create portals of any kind, there has to be a type of essence already there in some way or being drawn to that area. I know a lot of people will argue that the mirror being there will be what attracts the energies there. But to me personally, in my experience, that doesn't seem to be the case. Mirrors would simply be the portals. They don't attract spirits intrinsically. There is a difference with that. There is a difference between those two. I know what you mean, but they are separate things. And not every place set up with 2 mirrors will create a portal. It's been my experience that it's the people around the mirrors or the places from both a paranormal perspective and the basic psychological one. With someone feeling uncomfortable and psyching themselves out, which is so human and normal to do, to psych yourself out when you're feeling like weird or uncomfortable in any kind of way, especially if you're kind of like essentially dunking yourself in like a little river of EMF and you not being aware of that just because you're standing between 2 mirrors. So the portal talk with mirrors will probably make you think of people who tell you you need to lock your mirrors. Raise your hand if you've ever been told to spiritually lock your mirrors. Oh, I see you, and you, and you. Okay, so we got a few. This goes along in that same vein, that mirrors can be used to see the future, watch things from afar. Spirits and entities can travel to and fro. You're to lock your mirror so entities cannot get in. No other witches can spy on you. So you're not leaving an open window for entities to come in and out of your space. Which, like, in all honesty, I get it. I get it completely. When this is your life and, like, your belief, even the ordinary is no longer ordinary. However, I do feel like this adds in a bit too much fear into witchcraft that's already layered in fear, especially in something that screams at you left and right to make sure that you always have protection, without even explaining any of that protection, what it is or what's it from. It can be anxiety-inducing and overwhelming to some, thus kind of making you anxious and kind of fearful. And this kind of adds more to that fear I feel. Woo! Immediately like scolding someone for not locking a mirror and telling them they're going to be possessed or be followed by spirits nonstop until they lock this mirror. And then making someone feel silly for never hearing of locking their mirrors before. I understand that, like, with these beliefs, like, I get that wanting to be cautious and wanting others to do the same. However, I will say it again, a lot of people will state their belief as fact without telling you everything. Everyone is entitled to their own beliefs, but people get their own beliefs through their own personal gnosis, through their own trial and error. Just because it is your belief, it doesn't mean that it has to be everyone. Same with myself. I have my own personal beliefs, but I want you to make your own. On this channel, I want to present my beliefs to you, not project them. You're free to cherry pick, from them and take what resonates and leave what doesn't. I want you all to at least have the facts of some things, the superstition, the stories, the myth, whatever it may be. And I just want to challenge you guys a little bit. Take your craft to the next level and gently push you guys out of your comfort zone. While a comfort zone is great, there is not a lot that grows there. And I'm not saying any of this to freak out anyone or make anyone panicked or anxious or paranoid in any way, shape, or form. This is just an in-depth video. So it details, everything from one end of the spectrum all the way to the other. This is just for your own brain bank. Brain bank? What did I say? Brain bank. Try saying that 3 times fast. This is just so you could have like a variety of information instead of just my side and my beliefs on it. I could give you my experiences with it, but I don't want to give you guys my beliefs. I want you to make your own beliefs through different sources of information. Some people believe that it's only the mirrors used for scrying and divination and communication that these portals can be created. Therefore, you only have to lock those mirrors. Some people believe that it's all mirrors and they lock and they cover them. Some people believe that it's a bit more nuanced and case by case and will act accordingly. And some just don't believe in it at all and never had any issues with mirrors and have never locked their mirrors and never will. Next time you're doing mirror scrying, keep the Caputo Effect and Troxlers Fading in your head, especially when you see something distorted and the images stick with you afterwards. Some people, this doesn't even affect them at all. Some, a movie plays out in their head, or some it's just claircognizance or clairsentience, and that is not the Caputo Effect because they'll just have it in their head without physically seeing anything. It'll just be in their mind's eye. I just had to throw that in there one more time to make sure you don't forget it. So don't forget about the Caputo Effect, strange face illusion. Don't forget about it. And Troxlers Fading. If someone is telling you that you can't have two mirrors facing each other, otherwise it's bad energy, remember there is a form of physics that does happen that can make you feel uncomfy. But go what feels like right and natural to you. Or if you can't avoid putting two mirrors facing each other and you want to avoid that, just stick a plant in the middle. You have a neutralizing life force and plus it's pretty. And if someone is telling you that you don't know what you're doing for not spiritually locking your mirrors, you do whatever makes you feel safe or better. If that's their belief and not yours, that's fine. Or if it's something that you've never heard of before and this is like the first time you're hearing it and now you're kind of panicky, worrying that you need to create a sigil to lock all your mirrors now, you're fine. Again, do what makes you happy. Or if you're on the other end of the spectrum of this and you've had weird stuff happening with a mirror, now you have a bunch of information. Do with it what you will. I will be honest with you here. Hopefully my necklace isn't making too much noise. I got a new necklace yesterday at the Grimoire night market. It's Canonos. It's beautiful, but it is clankety clank clank. But anyway, I will be honest with you here. I do have some mirrors spiritually locked because I do work with servitors and such. And one of them has a home in a mirror frame. Not the actual mirror, but in the frame of a mirror. And its purpose is to use mirrors. So I have them locked in a certain way so then they go back and forth, but not anything else. So there is that for full transparency. But again, I only spiritually lock it because that it is its home. I know, crazy witch lady crafting artificial beings to watch over her home and friends and bring good dreams. Whoa! If you were ever curious on like how to lock your mirrors, you can create your own sigil and you could draw it on the front and the back of your mirror with even something as simple as rubbing alcohol. That way it evaporates clear without any streak marks of anyone seeing what the sigil is, and it creates that sterile environment since you're starting new with a locked mirror. You could also use a plethora of different types of waters versus oils because otherwise you don't want the mirror to be like sticky and the marks of your sigil being on the mirror, you know what I mean? So I would definitely recommend using waters over oils unless there's like cardboard on the back and you just want to put some oil on the corners very faintly, but not any oils on the actual mirror part. Or, you know, if you don't want to use waters, you could use salt and smoke. And don't forget how versatile you can make your sigils. They all don't have to be like letters. Sigils can be drawings as well. Remember, it works best when lodged in your subconscious. If I put this on the screen, you already know the company and the motto that goes along with it just by looking at this sigil. It doesn't have to be this crazy alphabet thing. You could do intuitive drawings as well. Make your magic your own. Mirrors in witchcraft are used to reflect. So you could send out magic, block it, or amplify it. You can trap someone in between two mirrors facing inwards or protect someone by having two mirrors facing outward. You could do your spell work on top of mirrors to amplify it. Wear reflective clothing or jewelry to protect yourself, or stick someone in a mirror box. Just not a narcissist. Like I said before, these types of spells don't work on narcissists, and basic return spells don't work on narcissists either. I still need to make that narcissist spell video just in case any of you guys are dealing with any types of narcissists, because they're their own entity, so they need special handling. I will get to that. It's just that my personal spell is like a bigger elaborate spell, not for words or incantations. It's just for setting the stage, and that is the only hint I will give you about that for right now until that video comes out, because I don't want to ruin it. This was a quick video. It probably wasn't quick with me talking about it because, like I said, I am exhausted, so normally I'm more animated and talking, and I'm sorry that I wasn't. Hopefully you still could enjoy the video even if I wasn't at like full capacity, because I am just getting over my allergies and they still keep coming in. I'm exhausted and burnt out. I just want to remind you guys to look outside of your comfort zone. It doesn't make anything that you're doing less real. It's just showing that sometimes there's more than meets the eye, and explain some things that aren't talked about a little bit more. Sometimes in some things within witchcraft, we kind of just take it at like face value and we parrot phrases and buzzwords, sometimes without even realizing it. Because to us, we're just like, oh, we do witchcraft. Of course this makes sense. But without dissecting it and then not stopping to ask like the bigger questions, we realize that we might not actually fully understand what we're doing. Yeah, a lot of it could come through like our natural instinct. But I also think it's important for a lot of you to actually move forward in your craft, to actually understand why you're doing the things that you are. That way, when you're in scenarios, you could actually move a lot quicker, become very much advanced in a way. Not that everything has to be titles, but just so you kind of have a better idea of what you're working with. That way you could understand it better. Magic is going to take the form of least resistance. And if you're kind of just parroting things that are very resistant and you're not sure why it would be resistant, you wouldn't know unless you kind of dissected it further. I hope this is making sense. Not everything has to do with like being advanced in your craft or anything else like that. I just want you guys to understand your energy, what the term energy actually means, and move forward understanding yourself and the spells that you do. I really hope this is making sense. I think it's because like when we're in like this mindset, because we're practicing like witchcraft and the occult, we'll put like blind faith into what someone is saying. Because again, working with the witchcraft and the occult, we're under that belief that anything is possible. So what if someone is saying it, it's something that we've heard so many times, we'll just start to say it because no one's ever questioned us and made us stop and assess. Words like protection and energy, we just throw it around and parrot it for so long that sometimes do we even know what we're talking about? Protection from what? Protection in what kind of way? The word protection is thrown about in such a way that you think that there is a spiritual war going around at all times and no one is safe, and that every single person is already under a type of spiritual oppression at this point. And energy is such a broad term. But I kind of again go over like what we mean by energy in the last video I did for like graveyard dirt, cemeteries and stuff like that. There's a section where I briefly talk about it there. Anyway, please let me know if this helped you at all or if it made you think. It's kind of cool seeing like the myths and beliefs and superstitions surrounding mirrors throughout like the centuries. If you're still here, leave a mirror emoji right now, please, real quick, just so I know how long people actually watch the video for and if these long videos are actually worth it to some people. So leave a mirror emoji and leave a few if you actually learned something in the comments. So if you learned something, leave 2 or more. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave all honest opinions down below, even if you agree with me or if you don't agree with me. We're always learning and we're always growing. I hope you're having a great day, night, evening, afternoon, energy, space, whatever time it is for you. And I really, truly hope that good things happen to you. Bye!